This is a TV show called Pagan Invasion. It came out in, I think, 1994 on VHS tape, of all things. Now, it's like a 12-episode series or something like that. Yeah, 12 episodes. I've covered a couple already. They just talk about things like how evil Halloween is and the coming of the Antichrist. This one is on evolution and how evil it is. It's actually really funny to listen to. This is actually like part 2 or 3, I think. Don't sweat it if you haven't seen the others. This stands independently of the rest. You don't have to see the others to understand what's happening here. In the previous one, they talked nonstop about how evolution is being taught in schools when it should be creation. And they had supposed so-called experts on to prove that evolution is being taught in the classroom. Oh my God. So I wanted to continue on and see what else they had to say about it. We just saw a transition in this episode a second ago. Right here, you can see the doors closing. Anyways, let's give this a watch and see what they had to say. It is absolutely fascinating to watch, in my opinion. And while we do, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII.
Could you talk about some of the ways that today's scientists are promoting pagan thought or metaphysical theories through evolution?
Wow, pagans are spreading metaphysical thought through evolution. Okay.
Found, Carol, that there is another trend that's occurring in our society today. While creationism has been labeled religious and every effort made to remove it from the public school classroom, Eastern religion is being advanced as science and is being accepted and endorsed. They're also saying that in the future, man will take another step of evolution to a higher level of consciousness, literally.
Okay, this is a really common tactic that you find when people are lying their asses off. Let me point it out to you. Did you hear use of the word they in that sentence? They are also blah, blah, blah. Listen again.
As science and is being accepted and endorsed. They're also saying that
they are also saying, who is they? Who are we talking about right now? This is called using weasel words. When people like this guy refer to some ambiguous, unknown authority out there who's trying to do something nefarious or trying to take advantage of people or whatever other nonsense. It's garbage, all of it. When somebody uses weasel words like this, you can bet that they're probably lying about something. Be very cautious when you hear somebody use weasel words like that. In reality, there is no, secret group out there trying to take control of things or trying to work, pagan practices into anything. It's all made up, completely made up. And he knows that. He knows he has no place to point, no direction to point to say, hey, look, these people are doing this. So he just says, they. Keep listening.
in the future, man will take another step of evolution to a higher level of consciousness, literally advancing onwards towards a new species.
Nobody says that. Well, okay, back in the 1930s or something, there's a psychologist named Carl Jung who came up with the concept of the shadow self. I was just talking about this recently with Teal Swan. She believes in shadow work and all that other garbage. In reality, Carl Jung was a competitor with Sigmund Freud, but both of them were completely full of shit. Neither of them had any idea what they were talking about, and basically every idea that they've thrown out there, Freud and Carl Jung, has been discredited. Every single one of them, pretty much. So here's why that's relevant. Did you hear what he just said there about ascending to a higher plane of existence, blah, 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 whatever else? That's actually something that came from that came from Carl Jung. That's something that came from Carl Jung. Now, Carl Jung believed that human beings were right on the cusp of an evolutionary breakthrough where instead of having 44 chromosomes plus the 2 sex chromosomes, Tool wrote a song about this, 46 and 2. Favorite band ever, but they're a little wooey. Instead of having 44 chromosomes plus the 2 sex ones, we would have 46 chromosomes plus 2 sex chromosomes. That's completely made up. It gets even worse than that with Carl Jung. He believed that we could force that evolution by placing crystals in 13 towers across the planet and all kinds of other crazy stuff. It got unhinged from reality, as if it started out any different. So anyways, the point is, this is all completely made up. Nobody ever took this idea seriously. Some nutterbutter espoused it as something credible years and years and years ago, and that's about as much credibility as it received over the years. Almost none.
So we're talking about a new dimension, an elevation of consciousness into a higher dimension, which is basically a metaphysical idea. And these ideas are being advanced by many prominent people and are literally being
Many prominent people. Who? Which prominent people? You catch this? More weasel words.
endorsed by many educators. This idea of an elevation to a higher level of consciousness is an ancient idea. It originated in Babel. It was a belief of the Hindus, who believed that a serpent force or a psychic force would lead one on upward into a higher dimension, a higher elevation of consciousness. In this book here, called Kundalini for the New Age, by Gopi Krishna, the author states, "I've sown the seeds of what I consider to be the most pressing need of mankind, namely information about the evolutionary mechanism in human beings slowly drawing the race to a golden future of harmony, peace, and happiness."
This stuff is not being pushed by educators. This isn't being pushed in classrooms. You know, this is not a tenet of evolution or whatever you want to call it. It's all completely made up, all of it. This is just New Age woo. And anybody who accepts evolution as the fact that it is, sees it as New Age woo. No serious person believes this stuff.
And he says that Kundalini Yoga, a practice, by ancient Hindu practice, is something that needs to be incorporated into our society today, should be introduced by science to our generation to make this next step of consciousness occur in our time. So metaphysical ideas are being endorsed as science, and believe me, they are being welcomed by many educators and being advanced in the education system.
All of that was weasel words. All of it. That was all just him attempting to convince the audience that there's some movement on the, on the evolution side of people that are trying to, like, brainwash your kids in some old school religious thing or whatever. It's all garbage. All of it. Every last bit of it. And he offered absolutely no evidence of this. He just kept using weasel words. Hang on, I'm going to turn my lights on.
What are some of the examples and ways that today's educators are bringing paganism into our schools?
They're not.
Well, Carol, in my office I have shelves of material and documentation that parents have brought me from various public schools of how their children are being indoctrinated with Eastern religion.
Totally. I believe you without question, and I don't need any evidence.
But let me give you one example. Here's a book that has been used in a public school classroom in Southern California. It's
in Southern California. Give us the school district. Give us the name of the school. Give me the name of the principal specifically. You know what? I have trouble believing people on this kind of thing. You know why I have trouble doing that? Because there's this massive spike of supposed claims about litter boxes in schools for kids that identify as cats. And it turns out it was all completely made up. All of it. Okay? There was a woman who famously showed up at a school board. Hold on. I got the clips. Let me pull this up. Is this woman right here? This is 2022. It was late January. It was Lisa Hansen. Shows up to a school board, and she says this. This is one of the things that sparked it all originally.
It was addressed by a child a couple months ago, that they are put in an environment where there are kids that identify as a furry, a cat or a dog, whatever.
Completely made up.
And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats.
Made up entirely. Absolutely no evidence for this.
And I am really disturbed by that. And I will do some more investigation on that. I know it's going on nationwide. I know it is.
No, it's not. Literally never happened.
Part of the agenda that's being pushed. I don't even want to understand it. but I think that people need to be aware of it, because I am really upset as a parent that my child is put in an environment like that. And, you know, I'm all for creativity and imagination, but when someone lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it, I have a problem with that. So I'm just putting that out there. I will investigate more.
Yeah, it was all made up entirely. The only evidence that ever surfaced for this claim that there were litter boxes at schools, there were 2 examples of this happening, or 2 pictures that were used as a premise for the claim that they were using litter boxes at schools or whatever. The first picture that surfaced, they claimed was a picture in a bathroom of a school of a litter box that children who identify as furries could go to and use the litter box instead of the toilet. Turns out that picture was fake. It was actually a picture of a litter box at an airport. It was in a bathroom because it was a bathroom designed for people and for people that have pets that could use the bathroom at the airport after getting off the plane. The second image that surfaced to back this claim up was picture of litter in a classroom that was placed there in case of like an active attack or something. Kids would be able to use litter in the, you know, in an emergency situation when they were under lockdown or something. Those are the only 2 instances, the only 2 pictures that floated around that had any merit to them whatsoever. Everything else was photoshopped or faked or whatever else. And those 2 instances were fake. They were not examples of teachers putting litter boxes in classrooms or bathrooms or whatever in schools for children to use who identify as furries. The whole thing was a fear-mongering campaign of nonsense to freak people out naturally. It didn't just stop there either. This is like a national fear that's happening right now. Listen to Pastor Andrew Womack, close friend of Kenneth Copeland, talk about this issue. This is mid-September 2022. He's on his show, and he says this.
A friend of mine in Illinois actually knows a teacher that comes to school as a furry. And
okay, so let's see. A friend of mine knows a teacher. So we are 2 degrees of separation away now, right? Go on.
School as a furry and wears ears and a tail and uses a litter box at the front of the classroom to relieve himself.
Okay, that's like an entirely new level of claim now that we've entered, right? He uses a litter box. The teacher uses a litter box at the front of the classroom, not in a bathroom, but at the front of a classroom. Really? You really think that this is happening? And notice he offers absolutely no evidence for it once again. These people are disconnected from reality to degrees that I can't even touch. These types of lies have been spreading through the evangelical movement since forever, particularly since the Satanic Panic. There were a ton of people, I think 17,000 claims or something back in the 80s of daycares doing satanic rituals on children. Literally not one was substantiated. It was all made up. All of it. This has been happening since the very beginning, okay? People have always lied about this stuff. Always. And these gullible suckers believe it every single time. Every time. Every time there's some new bullshit culture war thing that they want to get all wound up about, they fall for it. Like, when are they going to learn that they're the fucking idiots in the room? Not some supposed furry teacher who uses a litter box in front of a classroom. Not some supposed kid that wants to dress. No, you're the fucking idiot. When are you going to learn that you're the moron here? Are they ever going to learn that? Or are they damned to perpetually be the fucking moron in the room? Anyway, here's just another example on Pagan Invasion of them making shit up. This is 1994, right? This is a few years after the Satanic Panic. The Satanic Panic was still going on at this moment in time. To some degree, it was calming down, but it was still happening. And this TV show is like the tail end of the satanic panic, right? And we have a supposed expert on who's using weasel words nonstop to communicate to people that these things are happening in schools. What's happening in schools? In some ambiguous, secretive Southern California school that he's too afraid to name specifically, too afraid to give us specific names of teachers or principals or whatever. He says in some ambiguous school, this meditation for children book is being taught as part of the curriculum. Great, baby. Show us the curriculum. That's all I need. Show me the curriculum. You know what? After 17,000 false accusations about satanic rituals at daycares, I'm going to need a little evidence. You blew your chance at me believing a word out of your fucking mouth after 17,000 false accusations of satanic rituals at daycares. I'm going to need evidence now.
Titled Meditation for Children. And the author, by her own admission in the back cover of the book, claims that she
By her own admission, okay?
is an educational consultant for many school districts. She has taught transpersonal psychology and meditation to all age groups in the California public schools.
Is this even true? Is any of this true? This sounds like one of those things where he's saying he knows. I mean, why didn't they put it up on screen for us to read? Why didn't they give us some kind of a resource or anything to prove this? He's just sitting here claiming this blindly. And once again, you lost my goodwill when you lied 17,000 times over 10 years about satanic rituals happening in daycares and stuff, okay? I just don't believe a word out of his mouth.
Her books have been sponsored by superintendents of several school districts and by church leaders as effective educational tools. Then she says, much of knowledge from which we draw in learning to use meditation to get in touch with this great wisdom inside us comes from Eastern meditators, many Hindu and Buddhist. So religious ideas are being accepted in the public school classrooms, and they're masquerading as science. And
they're not masquerading as science. So he wants to make it out like creationism belongs in the classroom because meditation and other pseudosciences are in the science classroom. They're not in the science classroom. None of those things are being taught in science class, okay? Like, all of this completely made up, all of it. So I'm sorry. I just don't believe any of it.
The author goes on to say that these techniques and these therapies are necessary in our educational system today to allow us to take another step of evolution.
No, nobody believes that, all right? No person of any reputability thinks that, like, humanity is about to take another evolutionary step or whatever. That's not part of science. Once again, completely made up, all of it.
This is exactly the same deception, the same lie that has been repeated throughout history over and over again. Ancient pagan practices are being reincorporated into our society today, and the public schools are being used to spread them and propagate them.
It's apparent that evolution is playing an important role in the pagan invasion today. From your perspective, what are the reasons?
That's completely made up. It's just not happening.
Solomon, the Bible claims, is one of the wisest men that ever lived, said there's nothing new under the sun. History merely repeats itself. And in the past, when man willingly removed God from his thinking and trusted in himself, the pattern was that he turned to a metaphysical, supernatural, fallen spiritual dimension. It has happened many times. And every time that that occurred, when man trusted in himself rather than God, he turned to the fallen spiritual realm. Evolution today has been the means by which God has been removed from our thinking. Evolution is literally a gateway to the gods. And this New Age belief that elevation of consciousness can attain godhood is the same belief that the ancients believed in. It began in the Garden of Eden. It was repeated at the Tower of Babel. And it occurred over and over throughout Old Testament history. Once more, history is repeating itself in our generation.
Today, many students are not only being denied good science, They're being force-fed a pagan Hindu occult religion in its place.
They're completely made up, like literally all of it. And these people are so convinced that they're correct about everything, despite the fact that they have to lie about it. Like, they know they're lying. They know that they're not telling the truth. It seems to me, in my personal opinion, lest I be, sued for, I don't know, defamation or something. In my opinion, it seems like they are intentionally, knowingly not telling the truth about something. So how the hell do we get here? How is it that they believe the stuff that they're saying and still are knowingly lying about it? In my opinion, I think they're probably engaging in what's called spiritual warfare or theocratic warfare, as Jehovah's Witnesses call it. Scientologists call it fair gaming. Most groups out there have a word for it, but it's the idea that lying, twisting things around, manipulating is justified if it's in the name of, God. If it's an attempt to support God or endorse him or bring new converts in, lying, manipulating, or cheating are okay. That's the idea here. And that seems to me like what they're doing, honestly.
In giving credibility to evolution, science has moved from the realm of physics to metaphysics.
Well, if there's something that's unscientific, all you have to do is show that. Just demonstrate that it's not scientific, and it'll be removed from science instantly. Simple as that. Right? For example, string theory, in my opinion, it doesn't qualify as a theory yet. It's a hypothesis, in my opinion. And if you talk to one of the leading string theorists, Brian Greene, or you listen to any interviews or read his book about it or anything at all, he will probably agree with that assessment. String theory is not really provable right now, and for that reason should not be called a theory at all. All you have to do is call it out, point it out, mention it to some people in the scientific community, and they'll say, yeah, you're right, absolutely. But that's not what they're doing. These people are fabricating outrage and nonsense that's not based on anything. In fact, they're straight up lying right now.
I think that man is evolving into a
Whole Life Expo? What the hell is that? Paul Andrews' Whole Life Expo.
a state of higher awareness, higher consciousness, higher vibration. And I think that the best representation that we have of man's movement in that direction is what's going on in the consciousness movement, New Age movement. Evolution is going on all the time.
Yeah, Mind Expansion Institute, I don't know who these people are. I don't know why any of these organizations mean anything to anybody. All of this is just bizarre nonsense that is being used to try to convince you that there's some secretive movement of New Agers out there that are trying to take advantage of you or try to convince your children or whatever. It always routes back to the children. You ever notice that? If you want a movement to succeed, all you have to do is to convince right-wingers that their children are in danger. That's it. Matter of fact, that's exactly how QAnon did it. That's how they got their start. They started the Save the Children hashtag, and it exploded in 2017. They claimed, QAnon did, that there are 400,000 children that go missing every year. Over a 10-year period, that's 4 million kids. Where are all of those kids? When in reality, that's not how it works. Those 400,000 missing children reports were like a kid wanders off at a Claire's at the mall, and it goes to Baskin Robbins, one shop over. Police are called, they file a report, they find the kid 10 minutes later. These are missing children reports, whether the children were found or not. It's not like all of these kids, all 400,000 of them have gone missing and are now being sold into, child slavery or whatever, like QAnon was claiming. It's all about fear-mongering about children, making people believe that children are in danger 24/7. If you can manage that, you can convince the right, the far right, to do anything, absolutely anything for you. It's disturbing how malleable the far right is, seriously. And we're seeing an example of it right now at this moment in history. Some government organization, FDA or FTA or somebody, some three-letter group of sorts, basically said gas stoves are causing childhood asthma because, they let out natural gas and it's like living with a smoker. It causes childhood asthma and all kinds of other stuff. And what happened when the government released that information? Right-wingers literally went on Twitter and said, I turned on all of my gas stove eyes and just let them burn. And there's nothing you can do about it but cry. Like I give a shit that that's what they're doing. Are you kidding me? Like I couldn't possibly care less if you turn your gas stoves on and let them burn. Kill yourself faster. Go nuts, man. Really? Like, what's going through their heads that they thought it was a good idea to do something like that, to own the libs? Embarrassing.
Many people believe, and I believe, that the purpose of life is to grow, and that you grow as much as you can in each lifetime. And of course, we believe in reincarnation.
One prominent world religion today gaining much popularity through celebrities like Shirley MacLaine is known as the New Age movement.
Shirley MacLaine. Who is Shirley MacLaine? Let me just look this up real quick. Shirley MacLaine is an American actress, author, and former dancer known for her portrayals of quirky, strong-willed, and eccentric women. MacLaine has received numerous accolades over 7 decades. Anyways, okay, so she's just an old actor, seems to me. I'm not seeing why any of it matters, why they care about her or whatever, but all right, continue.
Or the New Consciousness movement. At its heart is reincarnation and karma, both part of evolution, which is based in Eastern mysticism.
Dude, are people not allowed to just live their own lives and do what they want? Are you kidding me? Why are they, constantly harassing people and criticizing every little thing that they do in their lives? Can't they just live their life? They're out here attacking other people, and for what?
The New Age movement is asking us to recognize our oneness by accepting the idea that we all evolved from the same pond. And if we can unite our minds and spirits using techniques such as meditation and channeling, we can supposedly get incredible powers, achieve global unity.
It's subtle, but pretty obvious at the same time. It seems to me they're trying to conflate evolution as an idea with New Age mysticism, right? They're trying to convince you that if you believe in evolution, then you are part of another religion, and that religion is mysticism.
New Age is an interrelated network of various philosophies and political causes. Its goal is to promote an awareness of global oneness, physically and mystically.
Everybody from Jesus Christ to Adolf Hitler would be seen as someone who we can identify with because...
And there's the connection to Hitler. It's truly evil. That's what they're trying to communicate. Every part of this movement is evil. It promotes evil things. It wants you to believe and accept evil people. See how this works? They're connecting it with something that is universally viewed as evil in an attempt to give you a visceral reaction, basically.
We are all one, and I think that certainly there is every potential for all of us as spiritual beings to merge as one.
We've mastered the evolution of the physical body. We've mastered the evolution of the mind, or we're moving in that direction. So we're coming to a time where we're using this perfected, quasi-perfected body, this opening and perfecting mind to act.
Dude, who even are these people? Seriously, why am I listening to them? What value do they add to any movement at all? And what relevance do they have in these movements? They just threw these people up and claimed that they were some kind of special something or other. I don't get it. What's the point here?
access the true perfection of the universe, which is the spiritual dimension.
According to New Agers, the next phase of mankind's evolution is elevation to godhood. They see the human race as a transitional form between apes and God.
Who is they? Once again, there's like no connection to reality here. They just, I mean, this TV show, the people on it are just throwing out they like wildly. Just no connection to reality, no nothing. Just throw it out there.
That's, I think, our purpose on Earth, and I think we're understanding that, is to make ourselves whole, to become one with ourselves, and then to realize our godhood.
And I believe that everyone has Christ consciousness within themselves, and all they need to do is go inside and realize that. And
Being a Christ pamphlet. Okay, God, I wonder what's in that pamphlet. I would love to give that thing a read.
bring it forth.
Is it even real, or did these guys print this pamphlet very specifically for this TV show? Did they just make this up? It wouldn't surprise me at all, honestly. In fact, I would be surprised if they didn't just straight up print this specifically for this TV show. I bet they did.
Evolution, whether biological or mystical, is man's way to explain away God and his creation and put man in God's place.
Like, this whole thing is completely made up, all of it.
Man has basically got the biological future of the Earth in his hands.
Dr. Nicholas Houghton, geologist, Smithsonian Institute. Okay.
He can control evolution.
We're in a time now where man is literally taking control of his own evolution, taking control of where mankind goes, both individually and collectively.
I believe that the New Age movement is heading into the mainstream of American consciousness. And
Well, I mean, I guess to some degree he was kind of right a little bit. New Age beliefs, some New Age beliefs, definitely made it into the mainstream. Like, for example, astrology is super common among, like, tons of just regular people. It's weird. Like, what's your star sign is one of the most popular questions to ask, is like a pickup line or whatever. It's just bizarre, dude. How did this happen? So anyways, I guess it kind of a little bit became kind of New Age. I'm sorry, kind of mainstream to some degree. But, you know, Christianity is still like the plurality in the U.S. Very much the plurality. Like, almost everybody is a Christian in the U.S.
I think that it's going to get there by exposure in the mass media. The ideas, the concepts, the principles, the psychology, the spirituality. I think that this is a movement that will go all the way around the earth and ultimately serve as a vehicle to transform levels of consciousness that will allow us to live in a more natural, harmonious way with the elements and with the universe.
I mean, you also see some really weird stuff in shops a lot of the time. Like, salt lamps, I think, are really, really common in the United States. Salt lamps are all over the place. And they're worthless. They don't do anything for anybody, salt lamps. They supposedly, like, release ionizing something or other and make the oxygen in the room, blah, blah, blah. It's all just religious garbage. None of it's true. Salt lamps are worthless. So every now and then you find, and also healing crystals, hematite bracelets, you know, there's a lot of kind of new agey garbage that has spread through society that's just stupid in my opinion, but yeah.
The desire for godhood, which is the goal of the New Age consciousness movement, is the same thing that brought about the fall of man. In being our own gods, we can justify our behavior and are accountable to no one.
In the Bible, Romans chapter 1 warns us about the natural consequences of rejecting God, the Creator. It results in man becoming involved in wickedness and moral corruption.
If there is a moral governor in the universe, then each person in this universe is responsible to that moral governor. The easiest thing in man's mind to do...
You know, if there was a moral governor, i.e. God, then he should have no problem making himself known to me openly, right? Send some kind of a message in my head and tell me directly, because people have a bad habit of claiming that they speak for God when they absolutely simply do not. All of these people have lost my goodwill, lost their opportunity to be believed without evidence when they consistently lied, like nonstop, throughout all of history, honestly. I'm going to need a little evidence now.
Do is just to dismiss the possibility of that moral governorship.
Adolf Hitler used the Darwinian thesis of natural selection, the survival of the fittest, to weed out who he considered to be the inferior strand of humanity.
Okay, that's interesting. I always find it fascinating to watch Christians dramatically and drastically try to grip onto the idea that Hitler was some kind of an evolutionist who believed in survival of the fittest, and he was an atheist, and he hated Christianity and all this garbage, when in reality, he used the church in large part to rise to power, and he snuffed out any churches that stood in his way. The Catholic Church stood in his way in large part. Eventually. I mean, they agreed with him and they worked with him for a while, but at a certain point, they all passed out, secret pamphlets that were all supposed to be read at the exact same moment on the same exact Sunday. And it was basically a denunciation of all of Hitler's ideas. Eventually. This is years after, terrible treatment of the Jews and others. So Hitler did terribly mistreat the church in most circumstances, but used the church in others. Had his own kind of church set up. So I simply reject the idea that Hitler was like this atheist who loved evolution and hated Christians. And it's garbage. It's ahistorical. It's revisionist history.
He brutally tortured and killed 12 million people, 6 million Jews and 6 million non-Jews.
I think, actually, is that accurate? I thought that 12 million people died total in World War II. And it was 6 million Jews. I may be incorrect. Somebody can correct me in the comments if they want.
In effect, we are doing the same thing today with abortion, euthanasia, and infanticide.
Wait a minute. The United States practices infanticide right now, like today. We're doing that today. In what form? How are we doing that? Not abortion, mind you. She said abortion and infanticide, in addition to abortion. So what's the difference? How are we practicing euthanasia and infanticide and abortion simultaneously? That's just bizarre. And second, that's not the same as what happened in World War II. And comparing them is fucking disgusting, honestly. Once again, revisionist history. They don't seem to have any kind of a grip on exactly what happened in World War II, if that's the way they view it. Disgusting, dude.
Considered to be unwanted persons. Since 1973 in the USA alone, nearly 25 million unborn human beings were killed by abortion.
It's completely nonsense. There's no way to know for sure exactly how many abortions take place. They're estimating. Those estimates may or may not be accurate, first of all. But second, abortion is literally nothing more, no different than scratching your nose like this. I'm killing more cells right now than I would have killed if I had an abortion, for example. Of course, I can't have an abortion because I'm a dude, but still. There is fundamentally no difference between the two. Now, at a certain point, there is a difference. At a certain point, it should be taken a lot more seriously. In my opinion, that point is 15 to 20 weeks. It should be taken a lot more seriously. But up to that point, which is where 99 or something % of abortions take place, and all of the others that happen past that point are done because there's a medical necessity. Nobody is getting an abortion at 39 weeks because they decided 5 minutes ago they don't want it. That's ridiculous. Most of the abortions that take place happen within that time frame. And I'm honest, I'm not even pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. I believe we should be having more abortions. I don't feel like this is a cringe take, and it pisses me off that people say that it's, cringe to say, oh, abortion is a good thing. No, it is. It is. We should be doing it more. It's not a human being. It's a clump of, 150 cells at a certain point. 150. I'm killing way more of them right now. Seriously. There is fundamentally no difference between me scratching my nose and getting an abortion. So anyway, comparing that to the Holocaust is fucking disgusting, honestly. It's just gross.
That is one baby every 20 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even true. That sounds made up.
If we deny that man is created in the image and likeness of God, then we lose the dignity and purpose of life. If we agree with the evolutionary premise that we are no more than evolved animals, then humankind loses all moral perspectives. We can either choose to look to evolution for the answers, or we can choose to consider an alternative. Just look at the vastness of the universe with its galaxies, solar systems, the planets, all
I thought they didn't believe in any of that stuff. I was under the impression they thought that was all, made up by big science or whatever, right?
circulating in perfect precision. There are more stars than grains of sand in all the world.
Okay, it sounds like she's about to hit the fine-tuning argument. Give me a second. I just have to open this safe. There's a very specific combination that I have to hit, and if I don't do it right, then it's a pain in the ass. So give me a second here. It's, let's see if I can remember. It's 36, 10, 59, 97. All right, 36. Boom. Got it. Okay. Now I got to battle a boss and all that junk. This is how you get one of the side characters. All right, let's keep listening.
Just think of the complexity of life, the intricacies of the eye, the ear, the heart, or the
It's truly amazing. Absolutely. Yeah.
human brain. Is it logical to assume it all happened by random chance?
Okay, evolution is not a random chance process. That's not how it works. But it's a bottom-up, controlled, natural process that takes place. But okay, keep going.
Or was there an awesome creator and designer behind it all?
Maybe. That's possible. I'm willing to admit that that's a possibility. But I'm not willing to admit that it was Jesus who died for my sins and blah, 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 all this other stuff. There's a whole big thing built on top of what you believe that makes it completely unrealistic, honestly.
The Bible says that man is without excuse because all around him he can see through the evidence of nature the mighty workings of a creator God.
I've learned that they love playing music that gets people copyright strikes. I hope this isn't one of those songs.
Our public school system has been described often as a zoo. And is it surprising?
Did you catch that? More weasel words. Has been described often. By who? Who describes it that way? Is it you? Why should I care about your opinion? Why should I care about anybody's opinion? Give me very specific information about their credentials, about what they know and how they know it, and why they matter in this conversation, and then I'll accept it. He's not even naming a specific person. He's just saying many people.
Our public school system has been described often as a zoo. And is it surprising when you teach the children that they are animals, that all
It's not what anybody ever taught kids. That's completely made up.
All of a sudden they begin to act like animals and out of control? If when a child is first able to understand or to learn anything, you begin to teach that child that 2 + 2 = 5. And as they get into kindergarten and go on through school, they are taught 2 + 2 = 5. That child will come to believe that 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a problem, right? I would have a problem with that if that were being taught, but it's not. This is completely made up, of course.
And yet, that child will be destroyed from ever able to understand or to learn math. When you start with an illogical basis, it destroys you from being able to ever think logically or clearly on the subject.
Oh, suddenly he likes logic. He wants people to think logically. Fascinating. All right, that's an interesting one. Love Angel Leet. 1,429,577 reported abortions in 1990, according to the CDC website. Considering a certain number of seconds per year, it's about 0.9 abortions per 20 seconds. Okay, if that's the case, then what they said would be accurate. But I don't trust their numbers that they provide, so we just have to be careful and check for reputable sources, like the CDC's reputable, I would say, on most things. So anyways, yeah, thanks for the message. That's pretty interesting.
When you take the premise that you can have design without a designer, that is an illogical premise.
It would be, except it's a bottom-up controlled process that is natural. Now, if this guy had spent 5 minutes learning what evolution was and how it works, he would understand that it's not illogical to think that evolution is, in fact, real. And it is real. It's a real process that's really been observed. But he hasn't spent the 5 minutes it takes to understand it. I actually explained how evolution works in episode 1 of this part, I think, if you're really curious. It's actually a pretty interesting process. It comes with a few very specific pillars, okay? The first pillar is the idea that genes can duplicate randomly, and this happens all the time. Not just during reproduction, but like genes will split off from one another, right? And they'll just create a full-blown brand new copy of exactly what it was, like exactly what the previous gene was. Not just during reproduction, but during, like, you know, as we age, as cells reproduce. You get genes splitting off and creating complete full copies of each other. Now, usually that copy doesn't do anything because there's already one there doing the work. It's redundant and, you know, useless and doesn't contribute or hurt in any way. On occasion, a mutation pops in where that gene changes just a little bit, just a hair. And sometimes when that mutation takes place, it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes that mutation does irreparable damage to the individual that experienced the mutation. You know, when a new baby is born, on occasion, it'll have a different eye color than its parents. You know, blue eyes didn't evolve until, I think, like 6,000 years ago or something. Most people had brown eyes, right? And now we have all kinds of different eye colors. Blue eyes, green eyes. Hell, there are some eyes that have yellow in them, you know. There are a ton of different mutations. Now, that specific mutation doesn't hurt nor hinder. So it just kind of spread randomly through the population. If it's a harmful, damaging mutation, that individual will have a lower chance of reproducing and living a long life. If it's a helpful mutation, that individual will come out on top. They'll be able to reproduce better and more children. They'll be able to survive in harsher conditions, for example. And they will live on to pass that mutation on to their children. That's the general principle behind evolution. Natural selection, gene mutation, and gene duplication. Those are the 3 pillars of evolution. Those are the only 3 things that you really need to get evolution to take place. That's it. And that took me less than 5 minutes to explain. Now, has he sat there and read about this to any degree at all? Any degree? Has he learned any of this stuff? Does he even know what gene duplication is or how it works? I doubt it. He just came on this show to fearmonger and propagandize to everybody around him and convince them that evolution is a satanic blah, 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 and didn't even understand the subject material he's talking about in the first place. Disgusting.
But if a child is taught that from kindergarten through university, then the child will begin to believe that you can have life forms and the design in life forms without the designer, but they will be destroyed from ever being able to think logically and clearly. The Bible clearly teaches that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And all the way through the Bible there is the assertion that God has created man and all of the life forms within it. That is logical because of the design that demands actually the designer. And it is important that we not only see the design in creation, but you can come to know the designer himself. And that's what he intended when he designed you.
I mean, they're building this whole thing off of a very specific premise from a specific denomination of Christianity. Like, there's so many people out there that have different ideas and beliefs about how the world came to be. And he absolutely insists that his is the right one. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Within all of us, there is a God-shaped vacuum. Throughout the ages, man has attempted to
Your mom's a God-shaped vacuum.
fill that void with the things of the world. But it is only through a relationship with our Creator that we can be truly satisfied. His Holy
Your mom's the only way I can be truly satisfied.
Scriptures reveal the way in which we can be reconciled to God, and that is through the provisions of His Son, Jesus Christ. I'm Chuck Smith.
And I'm Carol Matriciana. Join us again for another edition of The Pagan Invasion.
Dude, these people are something else, and this green screen is just bad. Does this not, like, remind you so much, the kids that grew up in the 90s, does this not remind you of, like, all of the cartoons and TV shows we watched when we were little? Oh my god, it's a dead ringer for that shit for me. Alpha Omega TV production. That's funny, and it's misspelled. That's an obvious reference to God in the Bible, right? He's the Alpha and the Omega. Wow, man. God, this is crazy. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I am honestly completely blown away by how crazy this is.